Okay, so just talk normally. I mean, I'm probably not gonna put the whole video on the internet because I really think people don't want to watch videos. So anyway, thanks for doing this. So just to start, uh, I've got a whole list of questions in front of me, but they've disappeared because I'm so used to emailing people the questions rather than talking to live people. So whatever it is, congratulations for making it this far. How have you found this season so far? Because last season you entered in the second division where obviously you won it without any difficulty. How's it been playing in this division with this group of sort of teams?
It's very testing. My I can't remember all the games this season, but certainly our quarterfinal against Victoria, Gross, and the Americans was a very tight affair, and the semi-final was even closer. It went down to not far from a dead heat. So it's very competitive. It's very hard to keep winning these games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed this format of questioning, and again playing against the very best people that I've played with actually quite a bit over the last, I'd say, 10, 12 years is always a kick. It's always a thrill.
Yeah, just following up from that, I mean, how do you find the questions in our league compared to other leagues? Because some people have said that it's basically like almost impossible to get more than 20 points off any of the sets, but you guys seem to keep getting more than 40 of them.
Yeah. Well, Nicholas, I actually maybe can tell you a little bit about what's going on here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and that is we have a very large population of Southeast Asians and people from India, particularly in the tech industry. And so we have a very large and enthusiastic India-style quizzing club called the Bay Area Quiz Club. And they've invited me about 12 years ago to join them. And so I'm really quite used to this type of questioning because every month one of us actually puts together these types of quizzes with this type of format where the actual questions themselves will kind of not be like just a very short, direct question, but kind of give you some peripheral information that if you know something about the answer, you can get. And and so I've been doing this for quite a while, and actually, again, writing my own questions in the style of an Asian quiz league for quite a while too. So I feel right at home with this, although I know it's more difficult too. And also because of the every year we do the Karnataka Mind Sweep. I don't know if you remember that quiz. I haven't seen it in a while, which again is in a similar format. It can be a little exhausting at times, but it's always fun.
Yeah, whenever I do the mind sweep, I kind of always have lunch halfway point because I can't do it anymore.
It's brutally difficult because of the time limit. It's about the most time throttled quiz I've ever done. You need about twice the time. With twice the time, there's loads more points to be had, but they have a certain time period, and you've got to decode these cryptic 4 or 5 line questions and get an answer. And that's only one done. You have another 149 to go. So it's a real time problem. I mean, the AQL games, time is a big factor as well because they can be quite cryptic, the questions. If you go down 1 or 2 dead ends, red herrings, you're probably done for. You just don't have that much time. So it's quite a challenge for the various people in a team for somebody to cop up, the germ of a solution and for somebody else to elaborate on it and then a decision and then the answer popped up and point gained, hopefully. It's quite a challenge.
Yeah. Especially for Pat and myself. I mean, we're both considered seniors now. So, so we have to really just put a little extra elbow grease into our brain to think of where we're going with the question. Sometimes.
Okay,
sometimes you don't get that spark of inspiration, and you're just done for. You never make any progress towards the solution. But hopefully, we can keep that down.
Okay, I mean, what do you all think of the difference between these sort of Anglo-European American style of quizzing and the Indian style of quizzing? What is the difference? Because I come from that tradition, so I don't really know.
Longer questions, slightly more cryptic questions, slightly more difficult questions, probably. But so long as they're genuinely interesting and thought-provoking, it's tremendously enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. What I always say about the Indian-style quizzing, as opposed to the Western-style quizzing, is the questions are harder, the answers are easier.
Yeah, I think that actually summarizes it really well. Like when it comes up, you go like, that's really straightforward.
Oh, yes, I know. That's what they were getting at. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Just returning back to a point that you spoke about, when you say about seniors, and do you feel that there's a difference because it's generally known that as you grow older, you obviously have more experience. You've lived through more world events, so quizzing should be easier. But obviously, younger people are probably faster, but with less experience, less knowledge in their heads. So, what do you think? What do you think it is?
That must be a magic age, 51 and a half or something, where you get the best of both worlds, and we may be steaming away in the wrong direction. Yeah, there is a balance between concentration, speed of recall, and sheer endurance, which I think young people have, and perhaps just older people have had more time to hear things and collect information in their heads, but may find it harder to bring it back quickly enough.
Yeah. But again, doing this for as long as Pat and I have, when you can draw upon things that were really secondhand knowledge to you maybe 30, 40 years ago that somebody who wasn't even born then would get. Those are the questions you can really jump on. And of course, as you get older, again, you have to work a little harder just to keep the brain in shape. The old saying, that which does not kill me makes me stronger.
Okay. Do you find that our questions tend to bias heavily either direction? Like, are they too pop or are they too classical in any way, whatever those words mean?
I wouldn't really like to issue a verdict without doing an analysis. My initial impression is that they're international questions. I'm not sure. My first impressions are that there isn't a huge bias in any particular direction. They're just international questions.
Yeah, I think you run the full gamut too through the generations, and I guess the only things that maybe a team like ours would have a little trouble with the exception of maybe our captain Amit, is when it is a direct question from dealing with India culture that, or some other Far Eastern culture that would be second nature to some of the competitors, and maybe a little tougher for us.
Yeah. Actually, how have you guys found that? Do you find that the India handicap or the Asia handicap's there? Or, well, you've made it this far, so obviously it's not that bad, but perhaps it is for other teams that don't have Indian players.
I don't recall the quizzes being very heavily Indian-centered. I could be wrong. I play so many quizzes that off the top of my head, sometimes it can be hard to accurately recall which particular quizzes I'm talking about. But I mean, we rarely have been blown away by multiple sets of questions on Indian topics. But obviously, I mean, hardcore questions on Indian advertising, on Indian reality TV, Indian scandals, Indian. Yeah, I mean, the potential is there. If there was a heavy slab of Indian-centered material, that would be the end, game over, quite frankly, unless you were from the subcontinent.
Okay, all right. Yeah. As an Asian quizzing league, obviously, do you find that there's anything about like the wide spectrum of stuff about Asia that we're not covering adequately enough? Like, I don't know, Nepali stuff. I don't anything like Central Asia, whatever.
Well, if it's an Asian quiz league, obviously, I think obviously you're concentrating mostly on India, Southeast Asia. we don't see too much on China and Japan. Of course, we don't have much by way of teams competing there too, and I think there's a language issue too. And I think one of those reasons too, of course, is that because of the way the questions are written, there in English there are puns, there are references that we could get, but let's say for a Japanese competitor, they just simply wouldn't get those little Easter eggs within the question itself, as we might say, that would give a much better hint of what the answer would be.
Can I? One interesting aspect of this quizzing, I'll give you an example. As I said, the time, the clock ticking down when you're trying to answer a question is a big thing, and it can mean that you don't answer correctly. In the quarterfinals, there was a question, and they showed a picture of a man, and the question contained stuff like, this man's mother, Regina, his father thought to be a scientist, and a few more details. And I looked at it. It was our opponent's question, and I thought, it's Bobby Fischer. And there was a delicious thought that it was talking mathematicians. I thought that won't help them. They guessed quite reasonably at John Forbes Nash, and they guessed at John von Neumann. But as I'm sitting there watching this, I'm watching the clock, and it's going so slowly, because you want your opponent's clock to absolutely gallop. And I'm there thinking, come on, clock, come on, clock. And it was quite a delicious question, because unless you knew that Bobby Fischer's mother was called Regina, and that his parentage was slightly murky, and it was thought that there was a scientist involved, I thought it's going to be quite hard for them to stumble upon the answer. So as a spectator, it was quite enjoyable to watch. And then finally, they had their two goals, and they came across, and we were able to take our point for Bobby Fischer. And against a team of that strength, a point going across is a fairly rare event. It doesn't happen very often. So, but it's strange. When it's our clock, it's going far too fast. And when it's the opponent's clock, the thing is just crawling along. Come on. So very exciting. Even watching an opponent playing a question and hoping it gets through to you.
Yeah, and your Bobby Fischer answer was a great hit, the critical
but the
moment.
thing was, looking at the question, although clues were there, fairly random guessing was probably not going to work, because there was enough in the question to answer it. And if you looked at the photograph, really, you could see Bobby Fischer. But I thought there's a good chance they won't stumble on this, because sometimes your opponents just stumble around, and to your fury, they land on exactly the right answer. But on this occasion, it's one that got across. Well, that was very exciting.
I would also add that as you probably know, following these games, that many of these very tightly fought matches come down to which mystery box you pick at the end, because you go, oh darn, we know you get all three on the other team's mystery box. We only got 2 out of 3 out of ours, or 1 out of 3. Darn, if we just picked the other mystery box, we could have won this game.
Yeah, there is an element of good fortune, no question about that. And when you win, you're not as aware of your good fortune, but you certainly are aware of it when it's the other way around. It's much easier to detect bad fortune than it is to detect good fortune.
Yes, the Hawthorne fallacy or the Hawthorne bias works much better. It works very well at quizzing as well. And it's quite fun to see the laws of physics work differently for the two teams and on hand. Just to follow on from what you said earlier, a lot of teams now talk to us post-match about the luck of the draw, if I had a dollar for every luck of the draw email I got, I wouldn't have to run the league anymore. So what do you think of the luck of the draw?
I think it's fun because go ahead, Pat. Go ahead.
No, you go, Mark.
Well, I think it's fun because it's not only the mystery box. It's also when we see the categories and you say, well, we get this category and we go, I'm going to just slam. This is a slam dunk. I'm going to get everything. And then you go, I can't get either one of those questions. And then you're stuck with a category that you say, well, this is it. I'm going to have to take this category. And by some miracle, you get both questions right. So that part's a lot. It's a lot of fun. It's every sporting event. I mean, again, there's that element of luck. that element of a millimeter or an inch or a decision one way or the other, and you take it into account. It's not just just pure what you know. It's not like the WQC or some of these other types of tournaments. And it's a lot what we do in the European playoff formats too. Mm-hmm. You never know what's in a category.
In the semi-final, I was staring at something like meteorology and film versus something to do with earthquake or scales, natural scales. And I remember I went for the meteorology and film, and I got the Alkaff pass, which was, well, I didn't answer it. I went across, and Sean Webb took a very good pass. He picked up the Alkaff pass, and nobody touched the second question, which was the Little Mermaid. Mm-hmm. And then the one I hadn't picked went to Sean, and it was Mercalli and Fujita. And I was there thinking, rats. So there's an instance. If I'd gone the other way around, if I picked the scale one, it would have been just bang, bang, 2 points. Whereas sometimes you go the wrong way and you pay the penalty. Not all pairs are equal, and not all pairs can be equal. I mean, it's just an impossibility. But I remember during that, because it was such a tight game, I was thinking, was that choice going to actually decide the game? But happily, we just squeezed over the line.
I think, according to my records, that's actually your first draw as a team, because you've only either won or I think you've lost one match per season, and that's about it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's very exciting.
So, well, just for the last few things, how back to your team itself, how do you think your team works without giving away too much to your opponents for doing the same interview, obviously?
We work reasonably well. It's quite a challenge. I mean, if somebody knows the answer for definite, then obviously it shouldn't be a challenge at all. It's a done deal. But the problem is you're dealing with half thoughts and hunches and the faintest of ideas. And to corral all of those within the 25, 30 seconds and make a good decision and go with the correct one, it's quite a challenge. So I think we're reasonably good at it, but you can always do better.
I think we mesh together very well in baseball, American baseball, and I'm sure this is true in many other sports. We have a statistic called wins above replacement, which in a nutshell means the key contribution of a person is really not the fact that, a team as a whole, well, 2 out of 3 may get 60 or 70% of the questions as a team, but it's that 1 or 2 questions you're the only person who knows the answer for and can add that extra point to the team. That's the key. And I think we all have our high wins above replacement rating here.
We had Alkaff, didn't we, a couple of games ago? We came up with Alkaff in the closing stages of the match. We were in a mystery box and we were about to be overhauled in a very unpleasant situation. And you coughed up Alkaff, some American chap, some pioneer or some.
Yeah, it was who worked with Madame Blavatsky. And the reason I got it was I said, well, the question must be coming from one of these list of categories here. I'll just assume it's the theosophy category, and we'll go with Alkaff. That's what they're going for.
That's just what we needed.
You're working backwards.
In danger of being overhauled.
Okay, so just to finish off, I'd like to bring up the issue of the curse of the previous champions. All the previous champions in AQL history have been struck by the curse. The first season champions got relegated. The second season champions have never really. The Alkaff have never really come back to the top 4. The third season champions got relegated, and the fourth season champions, that would be Victoria Groves and her team, well, they were this close to being relegated. So what do you all think? Is it worth it to win the title?
If we could win the title, it'd be nice. We'll take whatever Armageddon awaits us on the other side. We'll go down with our title in our clenched fist.
We know we're up against a very, very, very strong team from India. And so, again, it's an element of luck, too. So hopefully we pick the right categories. We work together well. One of us can pull out an answer, or we can support each other. and we'll do the best we can.
Well, we're really hoping you guys win. From the admin side, for one simple reason: no team from Europe's won it yet. So we you'll be our fourth continent to win the title, and that will be quite cool to watch. Any final words for our audience or our readers, whoever they are?
It's a hugely enjoyable quiz to play in. I look forward to every game, every question. Enormously enjoyable.
And I would just say that not only do we do this on an international level, but of course we have these great local groups like the one I belong to, the Bay Area Quiz Club in the Bay Area, and if you enjoy this format, you can play both through the AQL and also through some of these local organizations, which really put together some beautifully produced quizzes throughout the year in the same kind of format.
Okay, well, anyway, thanks to both of you for making it for this interview. I'm really honored to be speaking to the two of you. I mean, you're two of the great luminaries of world quizzing, and I'm just some guy in Borneo who runs a quiz league. So thank you very much. And if any of you out there want to see more of this kind of quizzing, the Asian Quizzing Championship is happening face to face on the 4th of December. We really hope the two of you will be able to make it one day, at the very least, to show the Asian teams that there are other people out there who can beat them. And we'll see if you can pull it off next week. We have written some horrible questions, and let's hope the answers are as easy as you think they are, and the questions are as hard as you fear they are.
Yeah. And Nicholas, you're calling from Malaysia?
I'm calling from Malaysia. I'm on Borneo Island. I started this league 3 years ago because there was no quizzing scene in Malaysia, and right now we have 5 teams. So I'm just happy that that's happened.
Okay. My wife and I have enjoyed our times in Kuala Lumpur and Penang Island.
Okay, well, one day come down to Borneo. I mean, it still carries that hint of romanticism that New Guinea, Borneo, the Amazon has, and nice to have a quiz championship on Borneo Island to tell your employers about.
Oh, I would love to go to Borneo. Just fascinated with the wildlife there.
Yeah, I'll be hoping to see both of you at our little AQC at some point in Borneo. But for now, let's hope that you guys win next week. But I'll be telling the other team the same thing as well. So there you go.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. And I think I'm going to put this whole interview online actually, because none of you have said anything rude. You haven't insulted Matunga Manram, and you haven't insulted anyone else. No.
Certainly.
Sure.
Okay.
All right. See you guys then. The interview should be up in about half an hour. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. See you guys then.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.